Попали.
Вот! Вот он! Вот, бля, гараж!
Ох, нефтебаза.
In the early hours of Thursday, July 24th, explosions rang out over Sochi. The city came under a massive drone attack. According to Russian sources, the drones struck strategically important infrastructure, an oil depot, and possibly a railway bridge. One of the impacts occurred just 2 kilometers from the spot where Putin called Trump on May 19th. 4 days earlier, on July 20th, Ukraine had already carried out another large-scale drone strike on Russian territory. The Moscow sky was turned into a battlefield. A mass attack of Ukrainian drones paralyzed air traffic, sparked fires in the suburbs, and forced thousands of passengers to sleep on terminal floors. The Russian Defense Ministry claimed it had destroyed dozens of drones, but the scale of disruption and panic tells a different story. The security system of Russia's capital proved vulnerable. During this time, dictator Putin was once again forced to hide deep in his bunker. But these attacks are not just about drones or airports. This is about a dictator, a man with nowhere left to run, because even his own capital can no longer protect him. Now let's look at the attacks themselves. The chronology began on the evening of July 19. Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin reported at least 21 Ukrainian drones launched. And later, the Russian Defense Ministry said 93 drones were shot down overnight, 19 of them over the Moscow region itself, and another 16 on approach. Later that same day, the ministry added that 8 more drones were down during daylight hours. Zelenograd, a satellite city of Moscow, became one of the night's most dramatic episodes. Cars caught fire, and drone debris hit the upper floors of a high-rise, shattering windows. In the village of Golubai, locals said the blasts were so strong they shook the walls and windows. Social networks filled with videos of burning cars and plumes of smoke near residential buildings. The main blow landed on aviation infrastructure. All 4 Moscow airports, Sheremetyevo, Vnukovo, Domodedovo, and Zhukovsky, temporarily halted arrivals and departures. Over the weekend, July 19 to 21, more than 1,000 flights were delayed or canceled. On July 20th alone, Sheremetyevo canceled 165 departures, Vnukovo 81, Domodedovo 9, and Zhukovsky almost all of them. People were kept in terminals for hours. Some slept on camping mats or directly on the tile floors, waiting for traffic to resume. People didn't know what to do. Take Turkish Airlines, for example. One of their flights was delayed for 24 hours. During all that time, passengers were given no food or water. They weren't even allowed to retrieve their luggage. And these aren't Ukrainians saying this. These are Russians themselves posting videos on Telegram, practically losing their minds. They don't know how to deal with this chaos. Eyewitnesses described the disorder in all sorts of ways. Videos from Sheremetyevo showed entire camps of passengers lying exhausted along terminal walls, charging their phones from any available outlet. In Zelenograd, residents reported through Telegram channels about fireballs over rooftops and sharp blasts after which glass showered down in apartments. The night of July 24th once again turned the Russian sky into a highway for drones. The Russian Defense Ministry reported 39 Ukrainian drones shot down in 5 hours. At the same time, Sochi's airspace was closed for several hours. The airport operated under plan cover, and flights were delayed. But here's what's interesting. We don't know how many Ukrainian drones there really were. Those are only the ones they claim to have shot down. Considering this information comes from Russian authorities, there's every reason to believe there were many more drones, and that many of them reached their targets. Of course, we don't expect Russian officials to tell the truth. On July 24th, Sochi became the main hotspot of the night. From 23 o'clock to 3 o'clock, the airspace was closed, and the airport completely halted arrivals and departures. According to Russian media, at least 50 flights were delayed, and overall, more than 100 scheduled disruptions were recorded at the airport that day. What's especially interesting is that the United States is no longer restraining Ukraine from striking Russia. On the contrary, they now say, if you want to hit, hit. You're at war. No one's holding Ukraine back anymore. And this is exactly what we've long wanted for Ukraine, that its hands wouldn't be tied, that it could strike back. And this strategy is already being implemented. Ukraine is paralyzing Russia. Moscow's in a state of total confusion. It doesn't know what to do. The country is in complete chaos. That's the core of Ukraine's strategy, to systematically hit Moscow, systematically disable its most sensitive infrastructure. Until now, only Russia allowed itself massive night barrages, swarms of drones and missiles, sometimes more than 700 in a day, rain down on Ukrainian cities, setting records for intensity and exhausting air defenses. Now, the situation is different. Washington has removed the stop brakes. In parallel, the West is not just allowing, it's reinforcing Ukraine. On July 24th, the US approved a new $322 million arms sales package, Bradley, Hawk, and other systems to close the sky and support the front. Add to this Donald Trump's rhetoric, declaring his readiness to arm Ukraine and threatening harsh sanctions against those who buy Russian oil, the Kremlin will have to rely not only on its endless resources, but on an ever-narrowing corridor to sell them. And while Russia tries to retaliate with new strikes, like the overnight attack on Odessa region on July 24th that hit ports and logistics facilities, Ukraine is now responding not only in its own skies. The blow now lands right where it originates. There was also attacks on airfields. Dozens of times, Russian airports shut down across the country. These are not random strikes. This is a carefully planned intelligence operation aimed at dismantling Russia's military-industrial complex, undermining morale among both the population and the elites. But the main point is to show that the Kremlin cannot protect anyone. It cannot even protect its own capital. Ukrainian authorities openly state the goal is to destroy Russia's defense production, pressure its elites, and force them to doubt Putin's leadership. And that goal is being achieved, because Ukraine is now showing it can hit any point in Russia whenever it wants. These attacks are psychological pressure not only on the Russian elites, but directly on the dictator Vladimir Putin himself. And we could see that he's become much more paranoid. It's literally visible to the naked eye. Back in 2022, during a trip to Kazakhstan, Putin ordered a full-fledged bunker to be built in the Russian embassy there. Why? Because even then he believed that someone might try to kill him in friendly Kazakhstan. And since then, he no longer flies. He travels only by secret, unscheduled trains. His security service usually calls airports in advance and informs them of Putin's arrival. But instead, he might arrive in that city by boat. He does everything possible to confuse everyone. No one ever knows exactly where he is. In addition, he has duplicates of his offices all around Russia. In different parts of the country, there are rooms that look absolutely identical, down to the centimeter. Why? Simple. He can claim to be in Moscow while actually being somewhere in Siberia. He could be anywhere in the country. There is never any natural light, always artificial. So it could be 2 in the morning, yet on video it looks like a late afternoon meeting. Everything is built on illusion. Moreover, at every meeting, Putin sits far away from the other participants because he's pathologically afraid for his life. According to a defector from the FPS, Russia's Federal Protective Service, the analog of the US Secret Service, Gleb Kirikolov, who fled about a year and a half ago, Putin lives in complete isolation, in a bubble. He barely interacts with the outside world. He sees only 3 to 5 people a day, and each of them must spend 2 weeks in quarantine before meeting him. The reason is simple: a paranoid fear of illness and infection. As a result, Putin hears only a very narrow circle of people. The military reports that everything is great, the war is successful, there are no losses, territories are being captured. Then the FSO staff arrive and warn, your life's in danger, drone attacks are increasing, security must be tightened. Paranoid Putin is far more willing to listen to those who emphasize threats to him personally. The army's already proven its ineffectiveness, and that plays into our hands because it creates internal tension. Tension between Putin, who trusts the FSO, and the military, who not only fail their tasks but likely hide the truth about both the drone strikes and the state of the front. The stronger this tension within Russia's leadership, the better for Ukraine. We want to see Putin growing ever more nervous, and that's absolutely logical. Let's recall what we already mentioned. In Ukraine, the idea is spreading that Kyiv has finally received the green light from Washington for strikes on Russian territory. And here's where the real intrigue begins. We have reliable information. Over the past 3 years, Ukraine prepared at least 2 real operations to eliminate Putin. Each time, the United States stepped in, explicitly saying, "You cannot kill Putin." It was painful, but now the situation's different. The previous prohibitions no longer apply. Putin's realized no one is insuring him anymore. No one will stick their neck out for his safety. At the same time, economic, social, and political pressure is rising. Strike drones are hitting not only infrastructure, but the nervous system of Russia's elites. The very people who once supported Putin for the sake of stable enrichment and a quiet life inside the country. Now he cannot guarantee them safety or peace. So an obvious question arises. What's the point of these elites clinging to Putin any longer? What do they get out of it? His main product, stability and protection, no longer works. This story is multi-layered. There's still much left untold in the political psychology and hidden management networks of Russia. But we'll talk about that very soon, because what we see now in Putin's schedule, his behavior, and the Kremlin's rhetoric points to one thing. Something significant is happening, and it's unlikely to be good for Putin himself. Thank you, friends, for watching this video to the end. Subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with the latest events. This material was prepared by Hustler. See you soon.